Welcome to the Sales to CEO podcast. This is your host, Louis Heron. This is the only automotive podcast that shows you how to go to the next level. It is my personal mission to coach and inspire and motivate you to go from sales to dealer principal or any level you desire. Stop making excuses and start making adjustments towards the future you want. Today, we're talking about how to persuade and influence anyone, more specifically your client. What's going on? This is Louis Heron, your host, Sales to CEO. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever time you're listening right now. I hope today's been phenomenal. Listen, today's show, we're going to talk about something I'm near and dear to my heart that I get thoroughly excited about. It's, in my opinion, one of the core things as it relates to selling, and that's persuading and influencing. And actually, we're talking in the context of the car industry and your clients, but really and truly, we're selling every day, right? Everybody's selling. And I know that a lot of people, especially that aren't in the industry, have a negative connotation to salesmanship and salespeople and gift of gab. But the facts of the matter are, whether it's our children, whether it's our spouse, it doesn't matter who it is. Somebody is always selling somebody. So you may be good, like myself. I'm pretty good when it comes to selling clients, but sometimes at the house, I get closed more than I close anybody else. It seems like somebody is always closing somebody. And so we're talking about persuasion. We're talking about influence. It's super important because if you don't really process the art and the science behind communication, the car industry in general, at any level you grow to, is going to be tough for you. And speaking of levels, remember, my mission, my core belief is to really try to change the automotive industry and help those who want to climb to the next level. I was so fortunate myself, starting at 20 years old, to climb all the way from salesperson all the way to dealer principal, a partnership in a Toyota dealership, own my own Toyota dealership, as well as a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealership. And it took years of work and dedication, and I've created the blueprint, the formula. Like, nobody sat me down and told me these are the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and Louis, if you do this and this and this, you can go to the next level. It didn't work that way, but fortunately, I want to share. I'm passionate about sharing to those that have that ambition, that's something inside of them that wants to go to the next level. And again, that's all located at Sales to CEO University. You can check that out anytime you want to. Let's talk about persuading and influencing. But before we get into it, I think it's important. There's two key things I want you to think about. Whenever we're communicating with somebody, it's extremely important to understand these two things. The first thing is tone and timing. Now, when we're communicating with somebody, obviously, and we're trying to convey a message or win somebody over or sell them on our beliefs of what we're passionate about, you got to pick the right time, right? I mean, you've got to figure out, especially when you're in a car transaction, when is the right time to talk about the finances? Is it right when I meet and greet and shake somebody's hand? Of course not. We don't say, "Hey, how are you? My name is Louis. Welcome to the dealership. And what kind of payment would you like?" It's just not the right time. And I know that's facetious, and I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I want to illustrate the importance of picking the right time. And in any communication, if you think about when you get into arguments with people or you get into debates with people, think about the tonality. Think about if I'm trying to convince somebody in the close, I'm in the write-up, and I'm trying to convince someone to sign up on the deal, my tonality and how I communicate that message is extremely important. So before we get into the four key things I believe to persuade and influence anybody, I want you to make sure you understand your tone and your timing is critical. And I think that goes really all across the board. I don't care if it's your children, your relationships, your tone. How are you communicating to the other person? Are you sarcastic? Are you condescending? Are you persuading? Are you convincing? Are you sweet? Are you loving? All these things, they all have a parallel, and they all run in the same path in terms of trying to convince and persuade somebody. The second thing I want you to think about is understanding the percentage of your communication style and how it wins somebody over or persuades and influence. So for example, 10% are your words. The things you say, the words that come out of your mouth affect and convince at 10%. Yet the tonality, what we just spoke about, is 30%. And then your body language is 60%. So let's back up for a second, because it's really, really critical. I can say to somebody, "Hey, welcome to the dealership. My name is Louis, and your name is?" Now, those are my words. Now, I can change my tone, and I can say, "Hey, my name is Louis Heron, and your name? Welcome to ABC Honda. What can I get you information on today?" And then I can couple that, and I can take my body language with a smile on my face and convey some energy, and it makes the whole greeting completely different. So when we're in a closing situation, we're in a communicative situation, and we're trying to persuade and convince. It's very, very important that you could just use your words, but you're only going to connect to 10% of the time. It's no different with me on this podcast. I can just speak words through the microphone, but if you don't feel my energy, if you don't feel my conviction, my passion, how in the world am I going to persuade or convince you that what I have to offer will better your situation? It's not going to happen, right? So again, let's go right into understanding the conviction level you have. And I want you, and I know you may be driving, but if you take time to go back and listen to this episode, I want you to write this down. E cubed. Put an E and a 3 there. These 3 things are critical in communication. It's your energy, it's your enthusiasm, and it's your emotion. Your energy, your enthusiasm, and your emotion. Now, in selling, in convincing and persuading, our job is to transfer. We're transferring our energy. We're transferring our enthusiasm. We're transferring our emotion. Right? Remember, you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it over and over because I think it's so true, but the words you say create pictures. Right? We use words and it creates a mental picture. A really good salesperson, a really good communicator. I don't care if it's from stage. I don't care if it's from the mic. I don't care if it's hand to hand, face to face. A really good communicator chooses words wisely to create a mental picture because those mental pictures will create emotions. And then energy and action will always follow the thought of the other person. And what are we trying to do? We're advancing the football down the field to get to a closing situation and put a deal together. We want the energy and action is for them to ink up, sign the deal, do business, right? That's the goal. So it all stems from transfer of energy, enthusiasm, and emotion. And if you look at the word enthusiasm, I don't want you to get this confused because I think some people try to fabricate or the old adage, fake it till you make it. You can't fake enthusiasm. You can't draw from an empty well. You've got to have something inside of you that is sincere and authentic. If you look at the word enthusiasm, the ending of the word is IASM. And I've always told sales folks over the years, that stands for I am sold myself. The only way you can transfer genuine, sincere enthusiasm is being sold yourself. In other words, you've got to believe. I believe if we're conveying something to somebody, we're so consumed of trying to close and convince somebody of what we think. But I really think, honestly, it's really not how much you press and close them. It's how much they think you believe what you're saying. Like I'm talking to you and I'm convicted and convinced with my 25 years in the auto business, I can definitely show you how to go to the next level. I know for a fact. If you don't feel that I know that, how in the world would you ever believe what I'm saying? It's not so much how much I'm teaching or how much you persuade, it's how much does your client or the other person think to themselves, this guy really believes what the heck he's saying. Because that is true, authentic, and raw communication and closing ability. So listen, as a salesperson, as a manager, if you're listening, GMs, if you're out there listening, or even dealer principals, your job is to convince, influence, and persuade your client to believe that what you have to offer will solve their problem. So it's easy to relate as we're talking about the client, but I want you to think about this, general manager, if you're in the dealership. Your client is the salespeople, is the managers. It is your job, general manager. It is your job, sales manager, to communicate and influence and persuade your clients, your people, your staff, your team, that what you have to offer as a leader, as vision, as your mindset will solve their problem. Everybody has a problem. And that's what we're going to get into. There's 4 things I want you to take note of right now in persuading and influencing anyone. Here's the 4 keys. The first thing is, what's the problem? Now, when I say that, I know you're thinking, well, it's problem sounds negative. When I say problem, let me break that down. Problem is issues. Problem is concern. Problem is needs. Every human being that's on your team at the dealership has a problem, has a need. More income, more money, more time off, family concerns, issues, mental health, habits, you name it, they're going through something. Leadership and influencing and persuading the team, the group, the core inside the store is all about meeting the needs and making sure that you as the leader have what it takes to get them to believe that what you have to offer will help them solve their money issues, their work issues, their learning issues. This is the job of a manager, GM, dealer. As a salesperson, same thing for your client. You have got to identify the problem. Number 2, in convincing and persuading, you've got to constantly reframe the situation with your client. Reframe the situation. It's hard to see the picture when you're stuck in the frame, right? Sometimes you've got to really identify for your client and rework it and reframe it. That's why I'm so convicted when you're working with consumers and your customers. You grab a Sharpie, you grab a sheet of paper. People believe more what they see than what they hear. I'll give you an example. I've had several people over the years in the car business would sit with me and tell me, Louis, look, I don't think the car business is for me. Now, I've got somebody who I think may have talent, skills, and ability that can grow in the car business. And I can tell you there's two that come off the top of my head, Brian Thompson and Amber Bloodsworth. Both of these two individuals, this is going back years ago, both of these individuals sat with me and expressed their problem. They're not making money. They don't know that the car business is for them. Yet I was convicted and believe in them and shared with them my thoughts and reframed the whole context of how they were feeling. Sent one of them to a leadership school for a week, worked with the other one. Both of those individuals ended up becoming managers and still are managers to this day. Again, you can convince, you can persuade, and you can influence. And I don't mean that in a negative way, persuading and convincing and putting somebody together for a negative benefit. I'm talking about to benefit exactly what the consumer wants or your team members want. So number one, we're gonna find out what the problem is. Number two, we're gonna reframe it. Number three, this is a big one. If you're wanting to persuade and influence, it's super, super important to be real. There's no fabrication. In other words, are you sold yourself? You've got to feel it in your soul. You've got to feel it in your heart. It's got to be in your very core when you're communicating. If you are selling cars and you believe in your product, you believe in yourself, you believe in the time you've put in, that conviction, that authentic conviction will convey itself to the consumer. And again, you've got to get to the point to figure out, to make sure it's the difference between having certainty and uncertainty. Think about this for a moment. The only reason why your customer does not sign up, hook up, and buy right now every single time you go one-on-one with somebody and you've gone through the steps of the sale and you get to a write-up and you get to a closing situation and yet they won't do the deal, it's because they're uncertain. They're uncertain about you. They're uncertain about your product. They're uncertain about the pricing, or they're uncertain about themselves. They don't trust themselves to make a decision, which goes back to you because you didn't convey enough information and belief and conviction in your product that could actually solve their problem. You didn't do the job it took to get them to believe that this deal and this automobile will solve the problem. So no fabrication, creating certainty is important. And the last thing, guys, is really, I ask you a question as it relates to the car business and really yourself, is really, are you committed or are you interested? See, because folks that are interested in the car business do just enough. They do good enough, so to speak. They do just enough to get by. You're interested. You're interested in the job. You're interested in maybe getting better. Those that are committed do whatever it takes to grow in the business. I'll leave you with this last point. And I don't say this to impress you. I say this to impress upon you the value and importance of the commitment level I had as a 20-year-old kid. I'm a 20-year-old kid in the car industry. I did not have the leadership that I would have liked, but I knew one thing. I was committed. I was ready to do whatever it took. There was no fabrication. When I realized the car game and I realized the money that could be made, and I believed in myself that I could actually buy a car dealership, that I could actually become a general manager when everyone else was kind of giggling and laughing because I was this 20, 22, 23-year-old kid. You think to yourself, how in the world is that going to happen? I didn't know and I didn't care. It didn't bother me. I knew one thing. I knew when my why was so big, the how was going to show up. And I leave you with that last thought because I want you to understand, to persuade and influence and convince anybody, it starts with you, your own belief, your own commitment level. You guys have what it takes. You have the skill level. You got to put in the work, change your mindset, get your skill set up, and get better. Again, this is Louis Herron, your host of Sales to CEO. Again, guys, till the next podcast, we'll see you then. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the Sales to CEO podcast. Look, real simple, do me a big favor. Number one, I'm totally grateful you took the time to listen, but share this, like, subscribe. This is how we build our network of growing people in the car industry to the next level. Again, like or share or subscribe right now. Until the next one, great selling, and let's go to the next level.